There exists a peculiar loneliness that settles into the bones of certain individuals, a solitude so profound that it becomes their companion, their shadow, their most intimate confidant. This is not the loneliness of circumstance or temporary isolation. This is the loneliness of the soul that carries something others cannot name, but instinctively recognize. It manifests in the subtle retreat of eyes during conversation, in invitations that never arrive, in friendships that dissolve like mist before they ever truly form. You have felt it, haven't you? That invisible barrier between yourself and the world, as if you speak a language only you understand, as if you exist on a frequency others cannot quite tune into. The medieval Sufi mystic Ibn Arabi understood this phenomenon with startling clarity. He spoke of souls that carried certain marks, certain qualities that set them apart from the collective current of human interaction. These were not defects or failures of character, but rather intensities of being that most people find deeply unsettling. They are traits that make you memorable but not necessarily beloved, respected but not easily embraced, admired from a distance but rarely invited close. In a world that prizes comfort and predictability in its social bonds, you have become something else entirely, a question mark in human form, an enigma that disturbs the shallow waters where most prefer to swim. Perhaps you have wondered why your circle remains small while others seem to collect friends effortlessly, as if human connection were as simple as breathing. You have watched from the periphery as groups form and reform, as laughter echoes from tables you never quite join, as plans are made in conversations that somehow always happen just beyond your reach. The easy explanation would be to blame circumstance, timing, or simple bad luck. But there is a deeper truth here, one that requires courage to face. The traits you carry are not incidental. They are fundamental to who you are, and they emanate from you like a scent others detect before conscious thought even registers. What Ibn Arabi recognized centuries ago, modern psychology is only beginning to articulate with its clumsy vocabulary of personality disorders and social deficits. But this is not about pathology. This is about presence, about the weight of your existence in a room, about the gravitational pull you exert on the emotional field around you. Some souls are simply heavier than others. Some carry densities that bend the light around them. And while this weight can be a source of profound wisdom and depth, it also creates a distance that few are willing or able to cross. The first trait that marks you as someone who inhabits the margins of social connection is an intensity of perception that borders on the overwhelming. You do not simply observe the world, you absorb it, consume it, process it through layers of meaning that most never access. When someone speaks to you, you do not merely hear their words. You hear the tremor beneath the words, the fear hiding in the cadence, the desperate hope wrapped in casual pleasantries. You see the micro-expressions that flicker across faces like lightning across a dark sky. You feel the emotional undercurrents in a room as tangibly as temperature changes on your skin. This is not a skill you developed intentionally. It is simply how your nervous system is wired, a hypersensitivity that makes you exquisitely attuned to the subtle dimensions of human interaction. But here is what you must understand. This level of perception terrifies most people. When they interact with you, they sense on some unconscious level that they are being seen, truly seen, in a way that strips away their carefully constructed personas. The masks people wear to navigate social situations, the polite smiles, the agreeable nods, the safe opinions, become transparent in your presence. You do not mean to make people feel exposed, but your very gaze carries an X-ray quality that penetrates protective layers. And so they retreat. They find reasons to cut conversations short, to avoid your company, to keep interactions superficial and brief. Not because they dislike you, but because being around you requires a level of authenticity and vulnerability that exhausts them. You make them confront aspects of themselves they have spent years carefully avoiding. This intensity extends beyond mere perception into how you engage with ideas, emotions, and experiences. While others are content to skim the surface of life, sampling experiences like items on a buffet line, you dive deep into everything you encounter. A conversation about a mundane topic spirals in your hands into an exploration of existential themes. A simple question about someone's day becomes an inquiry into the nature of meaning and purpose. You cannot help but seek the profound in the ordinary, the universal in the particular. Where others see a tree, you see a meditation on time, growth, and the beautiful brutality of nature. Where others see a failed relationship, you see a mirror reflecting humanity's endless struggle with impermanence and attachment. This depth of engagement, this inability to remain on the surface, marks you as dangerous in the eyes of those who have made peace with superficiality. Because when you are present, casualness becomes impossible. Small talk feels like a betrayal of what conversation could be. Lightness seems like a form of dishonesty. And while this makes you fascinating to a rare few who hunger for genuine connection, it makes you exhausting to the majority who simply want to get through their days without confronting the weight of existence. They sense that befriending you means being pulled into depths they are not prepared to explore, and so they politely decline the invitation your presence extends. The second trait that isolates you is a relationship with truth that is uncompromising to the point of social self-sabotage. You have an almost pathological inability to pretend, to perform the small deceptions that lubricate social machinery. When someone asks your opinion, you give it honestly, even when honesty is not what they seek. When you observe something that troubles you, you speak it aloud, even when silence would be more strategic. You do not do this from malice or a desire to hurt. You do it because living with unspoken truth feels like holding your breath until your lungs burn. The discomfort of dishonesty, even small tactical dishonesty, is simply unbearable to you. Ibn Arabi wrote extensively about the concept of haqq, often translated as truth or reality, and how the soul that has tasted its essence can never again settle for illusion, no matter how comforting that illusion might be. You have tasted this truth, and it has ruined you for the games others play so naturally. When colleagues complain about a situation they could easily change but won't, you point this out. When friends indulge in comforting narratives that avoid hard realities, you gently but firmly introduce the facts they are avoiding. When someone presents a false version of events, you cannot simply nod along. Something in you compels correction, clarification, the setting straight of the record. This commitment to truth makes you trustworthy but not necessarily likable. People respect your integrity, while simultaneously finding it deeply inconvenient. Because in your presence, their comfortable self-deceptions begin to crumble. The stories they tell themselves about why their lives are the way they are, the justifications they have carefully constructed for their choices and patterns, all of this comes under quiet scrutiny when you are near. You do not even need to say anything for this to happen. Your mere existence as someone who refuses to participate in collective delusion serves as an implicit challenge to those who have made peace with lies. What you must understand is that most people do not actually want truth. They want validation. They want their existing beliefs confirmed, their choices affirmed, their self-image reflected back to them in flattering light. Truth, real truth, is destabilizing and uncomfortable. It requires change, growth, the painful dismantling of familiar patterns. And so when they encounter someone like you, someone who cannot or will not participate in the mutual reinforcement of comfortable fictions, they feel threatened at a primal level. Your honesty is experienced not as a gift but as an attack, not as clarity but as cruelty. And they protect themselves in the most effective way possible, by creating distance, by excluding you from the intimate circles where illusions are carefully maintained and mutually protected. This relationship with truth also manifests in how you process information and make decisions. You cannot simply accept things at face value. You must investigate, question, dig beneath official narratives and convenient explanations. When presented with a popular opinion, your first instinct is to examine it from multiple angles, to find the cracks in the reasoning, to consider perspectives that challenge the consensus. This makes you intellectually formidable, but socially alienating. Because most social bonding happens through shared beliefs, common enemies, collective agreements about how the world works. And you, with your relentless questioning and your refusal to simply accept what you are told, stand outside these circles of comfortable consensus. The third trait that marks you as someone who walks alone is an emotional authenticity that refuses to be domesticated or made palatable for public consumption. You feel things deeply, intensely, without the buffering layers of ironic detachment or cynical distance that most people develop as protective mechanisms. When you are sad, you are devastatingly sad. When you are angry, you are righteously angry. When you are joyful, you are luminously joyful. Your emotions are not moderate or measured. They are tidal, elemental forces that move through you with undiluted power. And this emotional rawness, this refusal to dilute your inner experience to make others comfortable, creates an atmosphere around you that people find simultaneously compelling and terrifying. We live in a culture that prizes emotional control, that treats genuine feeling as a form of weakness or instability. The ideal is to be cool, composed, unruffled by life's vicissitudes, to care too much, to feel too deeply, to express emotion without several layers of ironic framing. These are seen as failures of sophistication, signs of immaturity, or lack of self-control. And so people learn to dampen their emotional responses, to speak about devastating experiences in flat tones, to treat their own inner lives as material for detached analysis rather than lived reality. They perform emotional minimalism as a status symbol, a sign that they are above the messy business of actually feeling things. But you have never learned this performance, or perhaps you learned it and then unlearned it, recognizing it as a form of death. Your emotional authenticity means that when you speak about something that matters to you, your voice carries genuine feeling. When you are moved by something, tears may come unbidden to your eyes. When you are passionate about an idea, your energy fills the room. You do not apologize for this. You do not perform emotional restraint to make others feel more comfortable with their own numbness. And this makes you dangerous, because your presence serves as a reminder of everything others have sacrificed in the name of fitting in, everything they have dampened and suppressed to be considered reasonable and adult. People are drawn to your emotional authenticity on a visceral level. It is magnetic, compelling, alive in ways most interactions are not. But they are also frightened by it, because it demands reciprocation. To be around you is to feel the poverty of their own emotional range, the ways they have learned to betray their own feelings in service of social acceptability. Your tears make their dryness apparent. Your passion makes their apathy visible. Your genuine joy makes their practiced contentment seem like the compromise it is. And rather than allowing your presence to inspire them to reclaim their own emotional depths, they often choose the easier path, distancing themselves from you, dismissing you as too intense, too sensitive, too much. This emotional authenticity also means you cannot fake enthusiasm or interest. When something does not resonate with you, you cannot pretend otherwise. The small performances others execute so smoothly, feigning interest in boring conversations, pretending excitement about plans that don't appeal to them, performing affection they don't feel, these are beyond your capacity or beneath your dignity. You would rather sit in honest silence than fill the air with false pleasantries. You would rather decline an invitation than attend something that feels empty or meaningless. And while this integrity is admirable, it is also isolating, because so much of social connection is built on exactly these kinds of small performances, these mutual agreements to pretend enthusiasm and interest we do not genuinely feel. The fourth trait that separates you from easy social integration is an independence of thought and spirit that borders on the ungovernable. You do not follow trends or adopt popular opinions simply because they are popular. You do not defer to authority without question or accept conventional wisdom without examination. Your mind is your own territory, and you guard its sovereignty fiercely. This makes you fascinating to those who value intellectual autonomy, but threatening to those who find comfort in conformity and collective thinking. Because your very existence raises uncomfortable questions. If you can think independently, why can't they? If you can resist social pressure, what does it say about their own susceptibility to it? Ibn Arabi spoke of the nafs al-mutma'inna, the soul at peace, which has achieved a state of inner security that makes it immune to the opinions and judgments of others. This is not arrogance or indifference, but rather a deep rootedness in one's own being that makes external validation unnecessary. You carry something of this quality. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough that people sense you do not need their approval in the way most do. You do not modify your opinions to match the room. You do not soften your edges to gain acceptance. You do not perform agreement when you disagree or hide your complexity to seem simpler and more digestible. This independence manifests in countless small ways that accumulate into a larger pattern of separation. You read books others do not read, pursue interests others find strange, ask questions others avoid, make choices that defy easy categorization. When everyone is moving in one direction, you pause to consider whether that direction actually makes sense. When a consensus forms quickly and easily, you become suspicious, wondering what is not being examined, what is being taken for granted. You are allergic to groupthink, resistant to bandwagons, skeptical of movements that demand unquestioning loyalty. And this makes you politically homeless, socially unplaceable, difficult to recruit into tribes and factions. People sense that you cannot be controlled or predicted, and this unpredictability generates anxiety. Most people want friends who will reliably support their worldview, who will take their side in conflicts, who will serve as mirrors reflecting their own beliefs back to them. They want to know where you stand on every issue, to be able to predict your responses, to count on your allegiance to their particular tribe or ideology. But you refuse this role. You maintain the right to agree with someone on one issue and disagree on another, to find wisdom in unlikely sources, to change your mind when presented with new information. You will not be captured by any single narrative or reduced to any single identity. And this fluidity, this refusal to be pinned down and categorized, feels like betrayal to those who need the world to be divided into clear categories of us and them. This independence also means you are willing to stand alone when standing alone is required. You do not need consensus to validate your perceptions or social approval to confirm your experiences. If you observe something that contradicts the official story, you trust your own eyes. If you sense something is wrong even when everyone else insists it is fine, you trust your own instincts. This inner authority, this unwillingness to outsource your judgment to the collective, is both your greatest strength and your greatest source of isolation. Because people who have learned to doubt their own perceptions in favor of group consensus find your self-trust threatening. It reminds them of their own inner betrayals, their own surrenders of autonomy in exchange for belonging. The fifth and perhaps most profound trait that marks you as someone who will walk a lonelier path is a preoccupation with meaning and purpose that makes casual existence intolerable. You cannot simply live. You must understand why you live, what you live for, how your living connects to something larger than mere survival and comfort. This is not intellectual curiosity alone, though that is part of it. This is a soul-level hunger for significance, a deep need to align your existence with something transcendent, to ensure that your brief time in this world matters in ways that echo beyond your individual life. This search for meaning colors everything you do, every choice you make, every relationship you form or fail to form. Most people, if they are honest, have made a kind of peace with meaninglessness. They have accepted that life may not have inherent purpose, that existence may be fundamentally absurd, and they have found ways to distract themselves from this reality through work, entertainment, family, routine. They fill their hours with activities that occupy attention without demanding that deeper questions be answered. They move through life on autopilot, following scripts written by culture, family, and circumstance, rarely stopping to ask whether the life they are living is the life they actually want or whether it means anything at all. But you cannot do this. The question of meaning haunts you like a ghost that refuses to be laid to rest. You cannot lose yourself in distractions because even in moments of distraction, a part of you remains aware, watching, asking whether this moment, this choice, this direction serves your deeper purpose or merely fills time. You cannot follow scripts because doing so feels like a betrayal of something essential in you, some core imperative to live authentically and purposefully rather than simply existing by default. When faced with choices, you do not ask what is easiest or most comfortable, but rather what is most meaningful, what aligns with your deepest values, what serves the person you are becoming rather than the person you have been. This preoccupation with meaning makes you a natural philosopher, someone who cannot help but examine life even while living it. You are the person who asks why at dinner parties, who wants to discuss death at celebrations, who sees weddings and births and promotions as opportunities to reflect on larger patterns rather than simply occasions for uncomplicated joy. This makes you profound, but it also makes you exhausting, because most people do not want to think about meaning. They want to experience pleasure, avoid pain, maintain comfort, and die having been reasonably happy and minimally troubled by existential questions. Your presence is a constant reminder that this comfortable numbness is a choice, and not necessarily the only choice available. Ibn Arabi described this quality as a kind of divine restlessness, a soul-level dissatisfaction that drives certain individuals to seek union with the source of all meaning, even as they live in a world that seems determined to distract them from this search. You carry this restlessness. It makes you constantly questioning, perpetually unsatisfied with surface explanations, always pushing deeper into the heart of things. When someone offers you a simple answer to a complex question, you cannot help but probe it, test it, look for what it leaves out or glosses over. When someone suggests a path that seems too easy or too conventional, you immediately become suspicious, wondering what is being sacrificed or avoided. This search for meaning also affects how you form and maintain relationships. You cannot invest deeply in connections that feel superficial or transactional. Friendships based solely on convenience, proximity, or shared circumstances feel empty to you. You need to know that the people in your life are there because of some deeper resonance, some genuine recognition of souls that see and understand each other. You need conversations that matter, exchanges that leave both parties changed rather than simply entertained. You need to feel that your relationships serve some purpose beyond mutual comfort, that they are helping both you and the other person grow, evolve, become more of who you are meant to be. This standard is simply too high for most people. They want friends they can relax with, people who make life easier rather than more complex. They want companions for activities, audiences for their stories, mirrors for their self-image. They do not want to be constantly challenged to grow, questioned about their assumptions, invited into depths that require real courage to explore. And so when they encounter someone like you, someone whose very presence seems to demand that life be lived with greater intentionality and purpose, they often retreat back to relationships that feel safer, more comfortable, less demanding. Understanding these 5 traits, the intensity of perception, the uncompromising relationship with truth, the untamed emotional authenticity, the fierce independence of thought, and the relentless search for meaning, helps explain why your circle remains small. But understanding is not the same as solving. The question then becomes, what do you do with this knowledge? Do you attempt to modify these traits to sand down your edges and make yourself more palatable to the masses? Do you perform a version of yourself that is easier to digest, friendlier to the comfort-seeking majority? There is a path here, certainly. You could learn to dim your perceptiveness, to see less than you actually see. You could develop a tolerance for social lies, adopting the white lies and tactical deceptions that make interactions smoother. You could learn to dampen your emotions, to perform the cool detachment that passes for sophistication. You could train yourself to adopt popular opinions, to follow trends, to seek approval and validation from external sources. You could distract yourself from questions of meaning and purpose, losing yourself in work, entertainment, accumulation. You could, in short, make yourself into someone who fits more easily into the world as it is. But here is the question you must ask yourself with brutal honesty. Would the resulting life be worth living? Would you recognize yourself in that modified, diminished version? Would the friendships you gain through such modifications actually satisfy the deeper hunger in you? Or would they feel like elaborate performances, relationships with masks rather than with real people? There is a particular kind of loneliness that is worse than physical solitude, the loneliness of being surrounded by people who do not actually know you, who relate only to the persona you have constructed for their comfort rather than the reality of who you are. Ibn Arabi taught that the journey of the soul involves not the elimination of one's essential nature, but rather its refinement and elevation. The mystic does not become less of who they are, but more fully themselves, more aligned with their deepest truth, more transparent to the divine reality that moves through them. The traits that isolate you are not diseases to be cured, but intensities to be understood, honored and channeled toward their highest expression. Your perceptiveness can become wisdom. Your honesty can become a form of service. Your emotional authenticity can become a gift to those brave enough to meet you in that depth. Your independence can become true freedom. Your search for meaning can become a light that guides not only you, but others who are ready for the journey. The path forward is not to change what you are, but to accept it fully and then seek those rare others who can meet you there. They exist, these kindred souls who are also walking the margins, who have also chosen depth over breadth, authenticity over popularity, meaning over comfort. They are fewer in number, certainly. You will not find them at every party or in every workplace. But when you encounter them, the recognition is immediate and profound. There is no need for pretense or performance. The conversation goes deep within minutes. The connection feels like remembering rather than discovering, as if you have known each other across lifetimes. These relationships, rare as they are worth infinitely more than dozens of superficial friendships. One person who truly sees you, who can meet you in your full intensity without flinching, who challenges you to grow while accepting exactly who you are. This is worth more than 100 acquaintances who only ever encounter your surface. Quality over quantity is not just a platitude in this context. It is the actual mathematics of deep souls. You are not meant to be everyone's friend. You are meant to be a true friend to the few who can recognize what you offer. There is also the relationship with solitude itself to consider. For souls like yours, solitude is not merely the absence of company, but a presence in its own right, a companion that teaches lessons no human relationship can. In solitude, you encounter yourself without the distortions and reflections that other people inevitably introduce. You hear your own thoughts without the interference of others' agendas and needs. You learn to distinguish between the voice of your authentic self and the internalized voices of culture, family, and social conditioning. Solitude becomes a sanctuary where you can restore yourself after the exhausting business of moving through a world that constantly demands you be less than you are. Ibn Arabi spent years in solitary retreat, not because he hated humanity, but because he understood that certain depths could only be plumbed alone, that the soul has dimensions that can only be explored in silence and stillness. If you have few friends, you also have more time for this essential work of self-exploration and self-knowledge. You have space for practices that others fill with social activity: meditation, reading, contemplation, creative expression, engagement with nature, direct experience of the sacred. These practices are not consolation prizes for a limited social life. They are the actual work of becoming who you are meant to be, and they require exactly the kind of solitude that your traits naturally create. Consider also that your path may be one of service in ways that are not yet apparent. The traits that isolate you socially may be precisely what qualify you for roles that require someone who can stand apart from collective currents. Someone is needed to speak truths that are uncomfortable. Someone is needed to maintain independent perspective when everyone else is caught in groupthink. Someone is needed to model emotional authenticity in an age of performed numbness. Someone is needed to keep asking the questions of meaning and purpose that everyone else is trying to forget. These roles cannot be filled by people who are too embedded in conventional social networks, too invested in approval, too afraid of isolation. History is full of individuals who walked alone precisely because they carried visions and truths that their contemporaries could not yet understand or accept. The prophets and mystics, the artists and innovators, the truth-tellers and paradigm shifters, they were often lonely precisely because they were ahead of their time, because they refused to compromise their vision to gain acceptance. Not all loneliness is purposeful in this way, certainly, but neither is all loneliness meaningless. Sometimes the marginal position is exactly where you need to be to see clearly, to maintain integrity, to do the work you came here to do. What matters most is not how many friends you have, but whether you are living in alignment with your deepest truth. Are you honoring what you know to be real, even when that honoring is costly? Are you expressing your authentic self even when that self is not easily accepted? Are you growing in the directions your soul wants to grow? Or are you stunting yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant for you? These are the questions that actually determine the quality and meaning of your life. The number of people who can walk beside you on this journey is ultimately less important than whether you are actually making the journey. There is a paradox here that Ibn Arabi understood deeply. The more fully you become yourself, the more you may find yourself alone among humans, yet the less alone you feel in the larger sense. Because to live authentically is to touch something universal, to connect with the deeper reality that moves through all things. The mystics speak of a loneliness that is actually union, a solitude that is actually intimacy with the divine ground of being. When you stop betraying yourself to gain human approval, you discover a presence that never abandons, never judges, never asks you to be less than you are. Call it God, call it reality, call it the deepest self. The name matters less than the experience of discovering that you are never truly alone, even when you are walking a path that others cannot or will not join. So if you have few friends, if your circle is small, if you often find yourself on the outside looking in, consider that this may not be a failure but a sign that you are carrying something that cannot be domesticated or made safe for mass consumption, a sign that you are meant for a different kind of journey than the one most people take, a sign that your solitude is not empty, but pregnant with possibility, not a void but a space being prepared for something that requires exactly this kind of openness. The traits that scare people, your intensity, your honesty, your emotional rawness, your independence, your hunger for meaning, these are not flaws to be corrected. They are the signature of a soul that has chosen depth over breadth, truth over comfort, authenticity over approval. The world needs people like you, even when it cannot quite befriend you. It needs your perceptiveness to see what others miss. It needs your honesty to cut through collective delusions. It needs your emotional authenticity to remind everyone what genuine feeling looks like. It needs your independence to resist the gravity of groupthink. It needs your search for meaning to keep the biggest questions alive. Do not diminish these gifts to make others comfortable. Honor them, refine them, offer them where they can be received, and do not apologize for the solitude that sometimes accompanies them. In the end, you have a choice that is starker and more consequential than most people ever have to face. Will you betray yourself to belong, or will you honor yourself and accept the particular form of loneliness that sometimes comes with integrity? There is no neutral ground here. The world will not meet you halfway. It will demand conformity, and when you refuse, it will respond with distance and exclusion. But what you gain in that refusal is immeasurably precious. You get to keep your soul. You get to remain who you actually are. You get to look at yourself in the mirror and recognize the face looking back. And you get to walk through this world knowing that your life, however lonely it may sometimes feel, is yours and no one else's, lived according to your own deepest truth rather than someone else's script. This is the teaching hidden in your small circle of friends, in your experience of not quite fitting, in your sense of being slightly out of step with everyone around you. You are not broken. You are not doing something wrong. You are simply carrying traits that this particular time and culture finds difficult to accommodate. And rather than seeing this as a problem to solve, you might begin to see it as information, data about who you are, what you carry, and what path you are meant to walk. The loneliness is real, but it is not the final word. It is an invitation, a doorway, a challenge to discover what lies beyond the need for approval, beyond the hunger for belonging, beyond the fear of standing alone. What you find there may surprise you. It may even transform your understanding of what it means to be connected, what it means to be seen, what it means to be truly met by another soul. Ibn Arabi wrote that the journey to union requires first the courage to stand alone, to be stripped of all false supports and comfortable illusions. Only in that radical aloneness can you discover what is real, what endures, what was yours all along. Your few friends, your small circle, your experience of walking a path that others do not quite understand. This is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of something else entirely, something that most people never discover, because they never dare to leave the well-traveled roads. Where this path leads, you cannot know in advance, but you can trust that it is yours, and that the traits that seem to isolate you now are exactly the equipment you need for the journey ahead.